Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football. And we're going to preview the upcoming game this weekend between the Seattle Seahawks visiting the San Francisco 49ers. And these teams are approaching this game kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. Keith, 2 weeks ago, Seattle lost at home to the 49ers 31-13. 49ers had 169 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Geno Smith had 180 yards passing, an interception, took 6 sacks. Last week, Seattle loses to Dallas. The highlight, if you will, is DK Metcalf kind of exploding for 6 receptions, 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, the 49ers beat the Eagles on the road, extend their division lead.
The Eagles on the road. They crushed the Eagles on the road.
Well, Purdy had 314 yards and 4 touchdowns, passer rating at 148. Debo Samuel had a great game, player of the week. It was drubbing for sure. Yeah. So, it's hard because you kind of want the Seahawks to have a fighting chance here, but it's just one of those deals where this was always going to be a game on the calendar, especially on the road against the 49ers, that you were going to put in the loss column. And we did, in our season prediction show. And nothing really changes for me in this thing. The consequences, though, are pretty harsh. Even though we know we're in a kind of a rebuild mode. The team is, in fact, in a rebuild mode, probably year 2 or 3 of a 3 or 4 year rebuild. And the team is kind of on the low end of what we expected going into the season. Haven't really met expectations. And there's no real way mid-season right now against these really hard teams to look for improvement or eke out wins. It's just really frustrating. And, the playoff odds, I think, are down to like 20%, something like that for Seattle. Although, even if we lose these next 2, we could win the last 3 and somehow eke in with 9 wins. How do you feel? Do you feel any different than what I just kind of described, or are you just as pessimistic as I am?
Oh, I'm really pessimistic about this game. And I don't want to be like, just fatalistic, like, they're going to get crushed, because I think the Seahawks did some things last week that give me hope, but I just don't think they can keep up. You look at what San Francisco's has been doing the last 3 weeks, especially last week against the Eagles. Is there a team playing better football right now than San Francisco?
No, they've won 4 in a row. Clearly a great team. Brock Purdy's having a great year again. I think putting a stamp on his play from last year, it wasn't just a weird sort of fluky thing in the 10 games that he had last year. Has come out this year and just been the best quarterback in the division, one of the best in the NFC and the NFL, and leading the team. I mean, they've got a good roster. They just do. They're just a good team. They're well coached. They got a good quarterback that's solid. They've got good playmakers on the offense, and the defense just does enough. They're susceptible, I think, in the secondary if you can kind of get the time to throw and have the protection. But they get the quarterback as good as anybody, and pressure and force timing issues and so forth. So if Seattle could somehow mitigate that, similar to the way that they approached Dallas, to be completely honest, got the ball out quick. I think Geno had the ball out in 2.6 seconds on a regular basis, the fastest of his career, fastest of the year for sure. And they were able to put up some yards, and Geno looked good in that game. And if they can somehow do that with the 49ers and have the defense somehow show up and not have a duplicate game of the Cowboys. Kind of shut them down, maybe cause a turnover or some disruption, or create some sacks and shut down third down attempts and so forth. Seattle's got a shot. I mean, anything can happen in the NFL. Seattle's a tough out, especially this time of the year. I don't think they're going to lay over and give up. Beating a team twice in a year is hard. San Francisco's beaten us, I don't know how many times in a row now, but it seems like quite a few.
At least four, because I know they beat Seattle three times last year.
That's correct. So. Yeah, I don't expect them to win, but I don't expect them to lay down either. And I do expect a challenging game for the 49ers and Seattle to give it everything they got, because the season's really on the line for them.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I don't consider this a must win, simply because I think they have a better chance of beating Philly the following week.
Agreed.
And they can still get into the playoffs if they win three very winnable games that come after the Philly game. So I think they're still going to be okay. But the truth is that, like, I would like to see them win this game. I'd like to see them at least be competitive in this game, because they haven't been competitive against San Francisco in a while. And we were hoping that would be the case, but this year, and that they might, take one from them and give San Francisco a run for the division, but they're just not there yet. The roster is not where it needs to be. And so, yeah, it's just, it's been kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it has, actually. I do agree with your assessment there that the easier out, I think, is the Eagles. A, it's at home. B, I think the Eagles are just a lesser opponent. Jalen Hurts has been hurt a little bit, as well as just had a little bit more of a struggle this year. Marcus Mariota had some time last week against the 49ers. Looked good. Colin Cowherd called for him basically to start in place of Hurts. That's going to be an interesting game. We'll talk about that more next week, but I think that the Seahawks might match up favorably in that game, actually. And we could potentially really need that game, especially if we lose this somehow. But I do expect Seattle to build on their success that they had last week against Dallas on offense. I really think that that's kind of the formula. That's always been the formula. And somehow or another, we just have not executed correctly throughout the year. And last week, it seems like it kind of came all together. Now that the offensive running game still struggled, I'd like to be able to see that work a little bit more. In fact, if you take a look at the advanced stats on our offensive line, we're a much better run blocking team than we are a pass blocking team. Yet last week, they didn't really have any sacks against us, except for that last one. And the run blocking has been hard. Our running backs have struggled to gain after contact or get to the line of scrimmage without having somebody in their face, immediately. So I don't know. It's just been a weird season where one thing's worked and then it hasn't worked. Another thing comes along and it starts to work. And that one thing that you thought was working, you didn't have to worry about anymore. All of a sudden you're worrying about it all the time. There's just no consistency.
Yeah. I mean, it's just frustrating because you've got a lot of talent on offense, and early in the year, there was a lot of injuries on the offensive line. It was easy to be like, all right, so, they're just trying to get healthy, trying to, do all that stuff. Eventually they'll get there. But they're past that. Cross has been back, and even though he struggled when he first came back from his injury, he's been progressively getting better as he gets stronger throughout the year. They've got Abe Lucas back now. So they've got both of their tackles in there. And, the interior of the line is the way the team had it built in the offseason. This is who they expected to be their starters. I would like to see them make sure that Bradford's in there instead of Haynes. I think that's a better combination, but it's still the way the team
Haynes
wanted
went
it
on
to be.
IR anyway, so Bradford's in there for sure. Haynes is on IR now.
Oh, he did get pushed to IR. Good.
Yeah.
Well, not good, but I didn't know if they were going to do that or not, and I had not seen if it was. That's they needed the roster spot because he wasn't going to be playing for a while. So yeah, so Bradford's going to be in there, and then that's just it's not getting better than what it is right now. With Bradford in there, with Lucas in there, with Cross in there, this is as good as it's going to get, offensive line wise. So make it work. And is this the game where you make it work against what is one of the best defensive fronts ever built?
If it works against the 49ers, it could work against anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the optimistic way to look at it, is if we can figure out a way to be successful against this offensive line, which we've struggled with, or against the defensive line there. We've struggled for, what amounts to years now. It'd be nice to win these trench battles for sure, because that's where Seattle's been struggling the most. On defense, I have more concern because, we faced one of the best offenses in the league last week in Dallas, and Dak Prescott looks legit this year. I mean, he's just having a great year, got weapons around him. And Seattle doesn't really have any answers. In fact, Dak had 320 yards passing, couple touchdowns, made it look easy, passer rating of 115, I think, something like that. And just kind of tore us up. Multiple targets, pretty much everything was getting completed, and really Seattle didn't have an answer for any of that, including pass rush. Just didn't get to him, didn't pressure him, didn't move him off his spot. We can't do that and have any chance of success, especially against Purdy. Purdy's a really accurate guy. If you're going to give him time, he's going to tear you up. He just is. Just over and over again, he's proven that he does that. So that's just who he is. And, that's Shanahan's, that's the entire premise of the entire offense is give his quarterback time to kind of pick his spots and pick you apart. And that's exactly what he does.
Yep.
And Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, I mean, those guys are just the best in the business. How do we slow them down, Keith?
Just play disciplined football. I mean, you gotta, against this this offense, the defense, you can't give them cut back lanes. You can't over pursue things. You got to play disciplined football, especially on the backside, because, so much of the run action will be, bootlegged off the other side, and you've got to have that defensive end staying home, to get up and get pressure. You've got to not let Deebo Samuel bounce things back and then take off, because a dude can just run away from you.
They create huge running lanes is part of the issue too, and the way that they use him, moving him all over the place. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, and they have great blocking up front. They create these big holes, and he sometimes, quite often, in fact, he had 4 rushes last week, not including his receptions, and some of those things were just wide open, untouched, for 8-10 yards down the field. And it's just it's what they do. It's why they're great. And we just have to figure out a way to do that. You mentioned discipline. I think that's exactly right. But sometimes you just have the lack of talent on your team to counter whatever the other team's doing. And Seattle's kind of been in that spot too, a little bit this year.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that. There's a lot of talent on this roster.
Yeah.
They don't have the speed
in name only.
They don't have the speed at linebacker that I think you need to truly shut this thing down. But they've got good bodies up front, and you've got guys like Boye Mafe on the edge. There's talent here. But I mean, and you've got, Witherspoon, who's having a fantastic year, in the back four, and Woolen is, still a incredible athlete and good player. I just think that they're not getting great safety play this year, which isn't helping, and they're not getting what they need in terms of coverage from the linebackers, and the ability to pursue and get upfield and make plays closer to the line of scrimmage. And I think that's what you go into the offseason trying to do. But there is talent. There's a lot of talent on that defensive line, and there is talent, at cornerback and with Boye Mafe. So I think that you just have to make it work and just do a better job of that.
Yeah. Apologize for my dogs in the background if you can hear them. Got one that's going a little crazy. Well, I would like to counter that. I get the idea that we've got individual talent, but the truth's in the numbers. And here's where we're at. Here's the rankings. Scoring defense, 24th. 25th, allowing 24.2 points per game. Passing touchdowns, we rank 25th. We've allowed 17. Rushing touchdowns, we're 28th. We've allowed 15. Total yards, we're 23rd. Passing yards, we're 23rd. Rushing yards, we're 20th. Third down percentage conversion rate, we're 29th. Red zone percentage, 25th. Turnover margin, we're +1, which is a pretty sizable stat there for me, because I think last year about this time we were +7, I think.
Mm-hmm. Gino's just been turning the ball over all year. That hasn't helped.
Yeah.
And the defense.
So what do you think? I mean, that's the defensive rankings, Keith. I mean, we just talked about talent there and the ability to stop them. And then I look at those things, and that doesn't really give me any confidence that that's actually translating.
Like I said, there are holes in this defense. You're going to have some pretty crummy ratings when you're not getting good play from your safeties, and your middle linebackers, while really smart and doing great things, are really slow and guys are just running away from them.
I think one of the big reasons why we're losing games, is that we are allowing 45.18% third down conversions, 63% in the red zone. And then on the offensive side, we are converting 34%. So a full 10% less, and only converting 51% in the red zone. There's the difference. I mean, you can point to a whole bunch of different stats and whatnot, but when you're so far, the disparity is so far between your offense and defense in those categories, you're allowing offenses to march on you and score, and you're not doing the same on the other side. And
part of the reason why you're allowing offenses to march on you and score is because you're not doing the other thing on the other side.
That's true. It all ties together. No, that's true. I mean, we're 14th on scoring offense.
If you look at like the Baltimore game, first 3 possessions, Seattle's defense completely shut them down, but Seattle's offense went 3 and out. And after that, Baltimore got rolling and it became a blowout. And I think that you just can't have that.
I'm just shocked at these offensive numbers. 14th in scoring offense, 22 points per game. 17th in touchdowns, 17th in rushing touchdowns. Total yards is 20th. Passing yards is 14th. Rushing yards is 27th, which is just absurd. Third down conversion rate, 26th. Red zone, 23rd. This was supposed to be a top 5 offense. And on paper, we thought it would be. And we were 9th last year. 9th. And we literally improved at wide receiver, at running back, and offensive line. And we've regressed considerably.
Yeah. And most of that regression comes from your quarterback.
I would say that's partially true. And I would say the other half of that is the offensive line.
Last week when the offense worked for the first time all year, Gino was playing like he did last year. He was getting the ball out quick. He was getting the ball to the right guys. He wasn't getting sacked. He wasn't holding onto the ball forever. He wasn't turning the ball over, although he did, but for the most part. And that is what he did last year when the offense was 9th. That he's not what he's done this year. And
it's true. But Abe Lucas was in there all year last year. And, somehow, some way, I think the offensive line was just a little bit better. We had a better running game. I thought that Walker was a little bit more effective last year, had some bigger plays in the run game. And this year we're just not getting that at all, which is, I do think it is the offensive line a little bit as well, both run blocking and pass blocking. We just haven't been consistent, and it's been hard for Gino to have any momentum then. And then the third down and red zone stuff and the play calling hasn't helped either. I think there's just a lot of different things. I didn't want to just hang that big, huge regression completely around Gino's neck. I don't think it's completely Gino. He's the same player.
The offensive line there were parts of it that were awful last year. I mean, Gabe Jackson at guard and didn't matter who was playing center. They were getting nothing out of those positions.
Yeah. What I'm saying is I think Gino is a league average quarterback with the little plus side as far as he does have the ability to have the big plays. He's got a big arm. So, but I think that, that's why I think the offensive mean average for us should be in the 12 to 15 range, and we're in the 20 to 24 range. And I just think some of that is offensive line. And I think, if it was a better offensive line, a better play calling, Gino, was consistently getting the ball out quicker, I think that we'd be better. And maybe we'll improve this last 5 weeks. But
I think if Gino could get the ball out of his hands quicker,
yeah,
you wouldn't be complaining about the offensive line because
it's true. That's true. Oh, that's fair. Except for the run blocking. I mean, we're supposed to be a better run blocking game, yet here we are at 27th in the league in rushing yards and yards per play and all that kind of stuff. We're in the mid 20s. It's just, I don't know. You got to be good at something. We're not good at anything. We're not good at defending the run. We're not good. I mean, we're better at defending the run than we were last year. But we're still, we gave up that Ravens game and a few others. And then defending the pass, we've got some great corners individually, but we're still allowing tons of yards and big plays and red zone conversions and touchdowns in the passing game. It's hard because I just don't know that we have an identity on this team, both on defense and offense. It's been a slog. It's been a struggle. I think coaches' jobs are on the line, unfortunately. I like Shane Waldron. I think he's a young up and coming coach. I think in the right offense and the right situation, I think he can be really good. He called some great plays and some great games over the course of the last 2 years with Geno Smith. And then there's been other ones where they've just not, he's not schemed well. They've not adjusted. And same on the other side, Clint Hurt. I felt like they've called some pretty decent games, had some good plays, but overall it's just been lacking. And some of the issues and problems that I see are coaching related. So I think these coaches, I think they're on the hot seat a little bit, and maybe all the way up to Pete Carroll. I'm not sure. I love Pete. You'll never see me be one of those on Twitter, on the internet, that's calling for Pete's job or whatever. I don't believe that's the way to handle the current situation. But at the same time, that you have to answer to these issues with the talent that we've got on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been pretty unimpressed with Clint Hurt. This is year 3, right? or is it year 2? I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore. I don't think he's done enough with the talent he's been given. There's been a lot of things where I just think that this is a team especially with the defensive line that they've got now, that they've got Leonard Williams and they've got Jerron Reed, and you've got
Dre Jones. Loss is huge.
So you should be able to, with that line, and you got Boye Mafe and Bobby Wagner, you should be stopping the run. You should be great at that. And this team isn't. And that's a problem. I mean, that is a major problem for me. And I just don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. And it's hard to know exactly what's going on in the building. Pete seems to be pretty aware and pretty, when he knows that changes need to be made, he'll make those changes. He's proven that over the course of the last 12, 13 years. And so it's hard for me to identify the exact issues and problems in the coaching staff, because week in, week out, there's just so many variables, and you don't know exactly if coaches are responsible for certain things, or if it's the players, or if it's the scheme, or whatever. But over the course of the big picture, you're right. I think Clint Hurst just hasn't been able to get it done, and it's tough. It's tough because he's a good guy. He seems like he's in there working hard, and they just don't seem to get it done. So I'm not sure where the shortcoming is. Okay, so let's focus back to the end of this game here, and come up with some sort of predictions as to how you see this thing unfolding this week.
How do I see it? How do I expect it to go? Or what do I want to see? I mean, that's because those are different things. I want to see this team be competitive. I want to see the offense continue to be efficient and operate, even if this isn't a win. I want that kind of stuff to happen. And I'm just not convinced I'm going to see it. I want the defense to be able to at least stop the run, or at least just not give up, 18 yards of play, which is what it felt like at times last time these two teams played. And again, I'm not confident it's going to happen. Top to bottom right now, I think San Francisco is just the better team. And I think somewhere along the lines of 31-17 is about all this team's going to be able to get at, and I hate saying that.
Well, that's a slight improvement from the last game. Yeah. It's hard for me because, how can a team own another team so thoroughly in the NFL? It's like, four losses in a row, and they've all been beatings. They haven't just been eked out last second field goals, walk off the field. These have been kind of, they've come in and done whatever they needed to do to win a game. And the most of those scores have been, looked closer than the games actually were. And last 2 weeks ago was the same sort of a situation. I'm with you. I would like them to come in and compete, figure out a way. You've had a chance to scheme for these guys now. This is going to be 9-10 days in between games. Last game, it was only 4. There's no excuses this time. You're going to be healthy as you've been all year. You're going to have the time to figure out a way to stop Tebow, to stop Ayuk, to stop McCaffrey, put some pressure on Purdy, figure out on the offensive side how to duplicate the Dallas game, getting the ball out quick, running the ball against the 49ers, and just go do it, execute, go down there to win, shock this team, shock the fans. They've got it in them. I do believe that, but they sure haven't been able to kind of have big games against the 49ers in the last few years. And I'd like to be able to see that again. If there's going to be some sort of rivalry, both teams got to show up. and I want Seattle to show up. You know, if Seattle thinks it's as Pete Carroll indicated this week, still believes Seattle's a playoff team, go show it. Go be a playoff team and beat another playoff team, and then we'll pay attention. Otherwise, we're just playing for to finish out the year and go into next season already, which is I don't want to do that. It's too early. It's 1st of December, not the end of December. So we'll still got a few weeks. Okay, let's get out of here. I'm prediction wise, I think it's going to be close. You know, I think it's going to be like 23-21. I'm hoping, and maybe the last team to have the ball is going to win the game, or a turnover or some weird play. I'm hoping for a tough, hard fought game and a victory down there. I am. That would shock me and shock the I think everyone. Nobody's expecting Seattle to win.
It would shock the league.
Yeah. So maybe that's when you least expect it. That's when it happens. All right, let's get out of here.
You have them coming off a big win.
Yeah.
And that was a game in which it was on their calendar because the Eagles were the 1 seed and last year, and they were looking like the 1 seed this year. And so, you know, that for them, that's a big game, something that they really wanted. And, you know, they're coming in. Seattle is a team that they've beaten down the last 4 times, including just a couple of weeks ago. Maybe they're overlooking Seattle a little bit, and Seattle can steal one. Whatever it takes. I don't care. I'd love to see a win.
Yeah. That's all those things are true. In the two game lead in the division, they could make it 3, but a lot of times, you know, teams relax a little bit. You're right, after a big game. So we'll see. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. If you go to your favorite podcast platform and do a search, Seahawks Playbook Podcast will come up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and get us in your feed every week. And we also have our own YouTube channel. If you're not watching us on video, you can. We're at Seahawks Playbook Podcast on YouTube, and hit that subscribe button. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWCHawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.